Some say Guelph is one of the best places to live in Ontario. Great schools, a strong economy, and one of the safest cities in the country. Others argue it's growing too fast, property taxes are too high, and public transportation options are lacking. So what's the truth? Today, I am going to be breaking down the real pros and cons of living in Guelph, Ontario, so you can decide if this city is the right fit for you. Well, the first pro here is the location and proximity to other major population centers. If we look at Guelph, it's located just outside of Greater Toronto area. If we're looking at Guelph, Ontario, downtown to downtown Toronto Union Station, we're looking at a travel time between an hour and 10 minutes and an hour and 30 minutes, an hour and 10 minutes if there's absolutely no traffic, like on a long weekend on Monday, like I'm recording right now. When it comes to distances between other cities, Kitchener and Waterloo are going to be about a half an hour drive, and Hamilton will be about 45 minutes south of Guelph. So definitely Guelph should be on your radar if you are looking to relocate outside of the Greater Toronto area. You can definitely commute from Guelph to the GTA on a daily basis. Number 2 is the safety, and Guelph is an incredibly safe city, and it's the second pro here in the list. Guelph was ranked the 8th most safest city within Canada. It has an overall crime severity index of 55.5 in comparison to the national average, which is 80.5, which is far below. And another great thing to highlight too is as other cities were getting more dangerous, there was more crime being committed in 2022 to 2023, Guelph actually saw a reduction in crime, falling about 7%. And you can really feel it walking around the city of Guelph. While I was recording some of the drone shots here, some of the B-roll, I felt, you know what, Guelph is an absolutely fantastic city to live in. I myself, living in Kitchener, I've been to Guelph several times. I know it pretty well, but of course I'm more familiar with the city of Kitchener. I was actually surprised how nice it is, especially that downtown core. Now, one of the biggest pros here and one of the major contributing factors to your decision when you are moving is what are the real estate prices like? And there's quite a bit of difference even between Greater Toronto area and Guelph, not even Toronto itself. Let's play a little bit of a game here. I've chosen 2 properties very similar to each other. Let's look at the one in Guelph. I will give you pictures, images of the property, as well as a brief description, and you guys can guess the price. So if we look at this one in Guelph, this one sold in the last 4 weeks. It has a double car garage built in 1999 between 1,500 to 2,000 square feet. My guess it would be around 1,800 square feet above grade. The Toronto Real Estate Board does not mandate that you do have a specific square footage, so I have to use a range of 1,500 to 2,000 square feet. In terms of the lot size, we're looking at 32 by 104 feet. Lock in your guesses now. This one sold for $975,000. Now let's look at this home that recently sold in Oakville, Ontario, just over 3 weeks ago. Double car garage, 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. The average household income in this neighborhood was $178,000. The one in Guelph was $179,000. So very comparable neighborhoods. Again, you're 1,500 to 2,000 square feet. I would guesstimate that this one was probably 1,800 square feet or so in change. The lot size was 45 by 80 feet. Lock in your guesses now. This one sold for $1.4 million. So if you're looking to make the move here to Guelph, Ontario and save hundreds of thousands of dollars on your next purchase, you can book a call with me in the first link in the description, or call, text, or email. And of course, the statistics do not lie. They're right on line with the average detached house prices. In Guelph, Ontario, in April 2025, the average detached house price was $957,000 in the Greater Toronto area. So not Toronto proper itself, Mississauga, Brampton, Oakville, Burlington. Within that area, the average house price was $1.431 million. Education and schooling, definitely a big factor when making a move to another city, and Guelph is well served in this aspect. In terms of high schools, we're talking 4 high schools on the public sector side, 3 on the Catholic sector side, with 39 elementary schools, and both boards were ranked quite highly, ensuring that most neighborhoods are going to have local schooling options both in English and in French. Another thing to note here is the strong academic performance for the average school within Guelph, Ontario. If we look at the standardized test scores, Guelph schools ranks about 4% higher than the national average. Post-secondary, you're well served in this aspect. The University of Guelph has 25,000 students. It's very well known for its veterinary school, absolutely excellent. That's probably what they're most well known for, and it's a great choice if your child is looking to go to post-secondary. The downtown core, probably one of my favorite aspects of being in Guelph, Ontario, is the absolute beauty of Guelph, and the highlight I would suggest of Guelph, Ontario, Our Lady of Immaculate, and it overlooks the city of Guelph, perched upon a hill, built in the mid-1800s, and it's very French Roman Catholic architecture, absolutely gorgeous, one of the highlights. But not only that, you have a plethora of limestone buildings within the city, really nice, especially if you're comparing to cities like Kitchener and Waterloo, which really didn't do a great job of preserving their older buildings, that beautiful architecture that Kitchener and Waterloo quite lacks, where Guelph really is a cut above when it comes to preserving their old buildings and the general vibe. I would compare Waterloo and Guelph very similar to one another, but Waterloo is a much more modern city. In terms of the historical and cultural attractions, the Guelph's Farmers Market has been in operation since 1827, so it's one of the oldest in Ontario, and it remains a Saturday morning staple. Now, Guelph is dubbed the Royal City, and it certainly does have that royalty aspect to it. But one thing it certainly does, and I would call it more of a green city, is the fact that it has a ton of great parks. In Guelph, there's about 10.4 hectares of green space for every 1,000 residents. 16% of the overall land in Guelph is dedicated to green space. There's a plethora of parks, just to name a few of them. There's Riverside Park in the north end from these images, absolutely gorgeous. There's Pollinator Park in the northeast. There's Exhibition Park, which is my favorite within Guelph, Ontario, not to mention the neighborhood itself. Exhibition Park, an absolutely fantastic place to raise your children. A few more parks to highlight are the Goldie Mills Ruins and Joseph Wolf Pond Park. Again, that's going to be south of Riverside Park. You don't have one but 2 major rivers running through the city of Guelph. You have the Speed River and the Eramosa River. So if you are looking for a body of water, Guelph definitely has that. Unlike Kitchener and Waterloo, we do have the Grand River, but that's going to be on the eastern side of both cities, so it doesn't really run near downtown Kitchener or Waterloo, unlike Guelph, which does have the rivers both on the eastern side of downtown and on the southern side of downtown Guelph. Another big highlight of living in Guelph is the University of Guelph's Arboretum. Absolutely gorgeous, located on the eastern side of the city. I'll pull up some images right now. They have multiple different gardens in there. They have an Italian garden, they have a Japanese garden, as well as I believe a British garden. Great way to spend an afternoon, great place to go for a hike. Now, there are some cons of living in Guelph, and it is a pro and it is a con at the same time. It's the rapid growth that Guelph has seen in recent years. Between 2016 and 2021, the population grew 9.1%. Population of Guelph currently is around 150,000 people, and it's one of the fastest growing communities within Canada. With all of this population growth, there is some infrastructure challenges, and it's kind of evident in terms of the roads, especially myself living here in Kitchener. I can compare the two cities. Kitchener doesn't have the best roads in the world, but there's definitely a lot less potholes just from my perspective compared to Guelph, Ontario, I feel like there's a ton of potholes in Guelph, and I think that's one thing to kind of note. Another thing to note when it comes to traffic and congestion, Guelph is going to be a bit more congested than Kitchener, Waterloo, or Cambridge, but of course it's not going to be downtown Toronto. It's not going to be a Scarborough. It's not even going to be a Mississauga. It's going to be a little bit easier going in terms of traffic times. Kitchener and Waterloo, it's kind of an unfair comparison because we do have the lowest travel times within Canada and the least congested cities within Canada. One major contributing factor to the lack of time lost in traffic is the fact that Kitchener and Waterloo have the expressway, which is made of Highway 85, Highway 7, and Highway 8. In comparison, Guelph, you do not have a major highway running through the city. You do have Highway 6 on the Guelph end, but that leads directly to the 401. There isn't anything really going east to west. So getting from the eastern end of Guelph to the western end of Guelph can sometimes take time because you're going to encounter a lot of traffic lights. The second con here is the lack of public transportation options within the city of Guelph. Again, I'll have to compare it to Kitchener-Waterloo, the neighboring two cities. Kitchener-Waterloo does have a light rail transit system, which has 17 stations. It's 19 kilometers long. Contributed again to that lack of congestion. It's another option for people to take. It runs from the north end of Waterloo to the south end of Kitchener, connecting both the uptown core and the downtown core of Kitchener. It's quite nice having the LRT. A lot of people, of course, were against it at the beginning. Humans in general, we do not like change, but it was definitely a step in the right direction. And Guelph has no plans to have a light rail transit system. Another thing to note here is the infrequent services of buses. At peak hours, probably not a problem, usually around 15 minutes. But if you're outside of peak hours, we're looking at 30 minutes in terms of service times. And if we're looking on Sundays, we're looking at an hour at times. So definitely Guelph, Ontario is a much more car-centric city unless you're living in the beautiful downtown core and you want to live that lifestyle where you can walk, shop, and live in the same area. Now, one thing that people don't understand about the city of Guelph is the higher property taxes that you'll be paying. The city of Guelph's property tax is about 1.39% for the year 2025. Now, what does this all mean? Well, we'll use an example here. Let's look at this home that recently sold in Kitchener. The assessed value in regards to property taxes was $497,000, and the property taxes were just above $6,300 for the year. If we look at a similar home that sold in Guelph, the assessed value of this home was just over $500,000 at $502,000, and the property taxes were nearly $7,000 per year. So that's nearly a $700 difference, and I really don't see where that extra property tax money is going compared to Kitchener and Guelph. I think they're very similar to each other, and they do not have an LRT like Kitchener does. Finally, the last con to living in Guelph, Ontario, and it's a con in general of living in Canada, is the long hospital wait times. Guelph has one hospital, Guelph General. If we look at the recent reports, Guelph in February of 2025 had an average wait time of 14.2 hours in the emergency room, with only 31% admitted within the target range of 8 hours. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you might like this video coming up next.